Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to my top 100 vintage board games of all time. Well, you want to know what my favorite vintage games are in my collection? Let's get to it. My number 100 is a game owned by the missus. It is the Jetsons. The Jetsons, you are one of George, Jane, Judy, or I believe the fourth one is Astro. Yes, it is. And you're just moving around this board trying to find a three-piece puzzle to yourself. Your top half, your middle half, and your bottom half. Everyone has to find an Elroy card too. Now all these cards are the same size. They're shuffled into 4 decks spread across the 4 corners of the board, and you're just moving around the board trying to stop on those spaces to get the card and see if it's one of the 3 or 4 puzzle pieces that you need. Whoever finishes their puzzle piece first wins. But watch out, there's little orbits in there that can send you anywhere on the board, which are really nice, and there's a yucky rosy card which makes you reshuffle the deck and redistribute the deck everywhere. This game stays on my top 100 because of a house rule we made. That rosy droid, it says leave it in the deck, but as the decks get lower, you're going to find rosy all the time, and so the decks the cards are always going to be moving around really fast at the end, and it just takes forever to get to one spot to the other. And maybe you know where your piece is, but then it got shuffled and moved around again. You're like, oh no. And before you can even move anywhere, someone picks up the rosy again, and it gets shuffled and moved again. It just really got redundant. So we say after the first rosy, you reshuffle, and then that's it. Take rosy out. When you do that, the game plays. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's actually a really fun game. So that's why it's number 100 on my list. My number 99 is Chipmunks Go to Hollywood. And the Chipmunks Go to Hollywood is very thematic. You see, it's Dave Seville's birthday, and either you're one of the 3 chipmunks or one of the 3 chipettes. Aha, it's for girls too. And you're sneaking out while Dave's asleep and going to the store to buy him a present and making it back. Now, I don't know what the Hollywood theme is, but there are these movie reels that kind of like snakes and ladders. You play a movie reel. If someone's on it, you can move them down on the board, or if you're on one, you can move yourself up on the board to kind of take shortcuts here and there. Now there is a beautiful catch-up mechanism in this, because when you go to the store, you start with a card that is the item that you want to get Dave, but there's 6 cards face down. On your turn, you flip over one of them. Only you look at it. Is it a match? If so, you can reveal it and move on. If not, you have to wait till your next turn to flip over another one. Now, as you see, the more players who move through it, there's less and less choices for the other players. So, the second player only has 5 to choose from. Third player only has 4. So it gets easier to pick that one. You're not spending as many turns at the store, supposedly, as first player will. I really like that. The only bad thing about this, there is a God card in it where it allows you, only one in the deck, allows you to switch places with any player on the board. Whoever has that card will win, guaranteed, because all you have to do is wait till someone gets to the finish line and then play it, and then you can switch with them and win the game. And so what we've done is, it's easy. Just house rule that card out of the deck. You don't really need it. The game is going to play pretty fast on its own, and it's a fun game. There's a lot of times you get to hold those movie reel cards. You're sliding someone down the movie reel, and then they're moving themselves back up, and then you're sliding them back down, and they're moving themselves back up. It's kind of redundant, but you're using up their movie reel cards too. And it is sad, because that's the only cards you can hold in your hand. So they have movie reel cards in their hand, but at the same time, it is a charming little game, and much better than the Chipmunk game I got a long time ago, which is no longer in my collection. My number 98 is one of the old Milton Bradley adventure games. It's my least favorite of them, but it's still decent. It's Curse of the Idol. Curse of the Idol, you're basically moving through this temple. There's a mechanism where when you land on it, you're twisting these gears around, so the floors are all moving, the door is opening and shut and spinning around, and you're trying to grab a sword. There's a villain that can block paths of everyone, and everyone can control the villain if they want to. But anyway, you get this sword, you get into the temple, and now you have a choice. I think there's like 6 different holes you can poke the sword in and see if you got the blood gem to fall out. If the blood jewel did not fall out, you get kicked out of the temple. The sword gets placed magically back into its area, and then you have to run around to the center again to get back into the temple. It's a mad race, and then when someone does find the blood gem, then everyone's trying to steal it from you. They're trying to fight. It's a roll-off to get it. And so it's a mad race to the exits, one of the 2 exits there, as the villain is sometimes blocking your path too. This is a fun game. It is fun. The only thing is you do have to use a lot of house rules in this game. You can see my review, or I think Luke from Down from the Attic put in some really good rules that really help it out. The reason this one is very low on my list this year when we played it, I'm finding cheaters in the mist. The game can go pretty long as you're sticking the sword in there, and sometimes people forget which hole someone else picked, and they choose the same one. You're like, oh my gosh, everyone knew which one it was, but we couldn't ever get the sword. And my little nephew got the sword, would always pick the wrong one each time. He's like, where was it again? To where eventually my nephew's like, it's there, it's right there, just poke the sword in there. And then another one that my wife did, she poked the sword in there and then rattled it around. When you do that, it'll automatically fall out, whichever hole it's in. And then I noticed when my nephew saw that happen, they'd stick the sword in and accidentally hit it hard so that the blood gem would fall out anyway, whatever hole they push it in. And so, that there's a problem there with the mechanism in the little statue. It looks like a beautiful game. Sadly, there's so many faults in this game, and I hate that. I have put the game up for trade a little bit, and I've gotten a lot of interest this year, but just because of its value, I just haven't found anything. And some of the trades I've made, people have declined too, people who were inquiring about it. So it does have a really high trade value, though. I just can't find the right game to trade for it. But for right now, it stays in my collection. And like I said, as long as it's getting played, it'll probably stay in my top 100 too. My number 97 is Dead Stop. In Dead Stop, it's a two-player game. You are putting these rings underneath these black or white pawns, I believe, and you're moving them. No, they're all black pawns. You're moving them across the board. And you're trying to play cards to move your pawns as high as they can get. At the same time, you're trying to guess your opponent's pawns and what they have underneath their rings. For any wrong guess, you place a colored ring on that pawn to remind yourself, I guessed red on that one. Now, it's a really smart game. That's all there is to the game. At the end of the game, after everyone has guessed, because if you guess the right one, you have to turn around and that pawn comes to a dead stop, meaning they can't move any further. Very strategic game. You want to move all your pieces equally, because if someone guesses a piece really early, you can lose the first two spots on the board are negative points, negative 40 and negative 20. Negative 40, they don't even move. If they move 2 spots, they get a 0. And then when you get 4 spots and more, that's when you start garnering more points. If you can get to the top, that's the best thing. But do you race one pawn up to the top? Yeah, one pawn. I got 100 points. Yay! But they guessed 3 of my pawns at the beginning, so I lost 120. Oh, it's a really smart game. I have trouble finding people to play with me because two-player games don't really go over really well. I don't have many two players to play with. I did play with my wife, and she was not impressed with the game. But I do enjoy Dead Stop. I think it's just a smart little game. It's cheap. If you have 2 players and you're looking for something like I said, it's a very strategic game too. Don't judge all the pieces look awful, the cover looks bad, but it actually is a really fun game for 2 players. You should check it out if you don't have it. My number 96 is the Dream of Jeanie game. I bought this game for my wife for, I think, Christmas or her birthday a long time ago, because she was watching through all the Dream of Jeanie stuff. She actually met Barbara Eden. We have an autographed Jeanie bottle. This is all true here. And it's really cool. So during all that, I said, you know what, I'm going to get her the board game. And we've played it a few times. Well, this year we played it, and I think that it was exactly here on my list last year, and I thought, man, it probably won't last, next year. It'll probably be off my list. But for the simplicity of it, basically just rolling the die and move into stores trying to find a Major Nelson card. When you find a Major Nelson card, go all the way to the end to the launch pad, the shuttle launch pad, and you win the game. And I was like, well, that's kind of simple. This game surprised me the last time we played. I found Major Nelson the very first store I went to, lucky, and I made a beeline for the launch pad. Well, the whole time my wife's checking store after store, getting special cards, but not finding a Major Nelson. And she knows I have it because I'm just making a beeline for the launch pad. And finally, she finds a Major Nelson. Well, then she starts playing all these cards that would screw me, push me back, while meanwhile, she's taking shortcuts using her cards and moving to the board fast, and she actually ended up beating me at the end. So it made me realize, oh, just because you find Major Nelson first doesn't mean you're going to win the game. You need to go into a few stores, have some other cheat cards too to help you get to the end, help other players stay back. Because she did. It was the biggest comeback of all time. Of all my vintage games, this was the biggest comeback we had. So for that reason, it stays in my top 100. And like I said, it is a fun game. Now, today, I'm the only person to review it, and a lot of people I Dream of Jeanie fans never knew this game existed, because as of when I did my review, it's not on Board Game Geek. Even Board Game Geek didn't have it. I think someone did post it later on, but it's a game that was not on Board Game Geek at the time of my video. So kind of proud of that fact. My number 95 shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, because I love Star Wars and I love Ewoks. So Ewoks Save the Trees. This is a silly little pop-up game. It's a 3D board. When you open it up, it's automatically set up. Easiest thing to set up. The palm pieces look beautiful. There's little plastic Ewoks of different colors. But basically it's Candyland. You're turning 1 or 2 dials. I'm glad they have 2 dials. And you're moving to that color. Or you're doing an action, blocking someone else's path, or opening up a trap somewhere, or opening up the door to the Tree of Life. And that's basically what you're doing, is trying to be the first Ewok to get to the Tree of Life. And if you're there, then you're just waiting to open the door. It's a simple little game, but it does look really nice. It's easy to set up, and I love it. I'm really excited for when my daughters get a little bit older. You can be very young and play this game. I cannot wait to bring this out to them. Hopefully they like Ewoks. Maybe I'll just tell them they're space teddy bears. I don't care. I think it's a really fun game, which is why it's here on my top 100. My number 94 is Pizza Party. Pizza Party is a game where everyone grabs a slice of pizza, and they're trying to put either green peppers, onions, mushrooms, or pepperoni pieces on there. All the tokens of those toppings are we put them in the box. We kind of shuffle them around. You pick one. If it's not the right one, you put it back in the box and reshuffle it. If it is the right one, you put it on your pizza. But there are switch cards in that box, which make you switch your personal pan pizza with someone else's, which is really good, because you could be winning just by luck of the draw, and then suddenly someone picks that switch, and now you get the one with 2 onions. You had 4 pepper. You were almost finished. You had 5 pepperoni on that pizza. Oh man! It does add for a little randomness and craziness in the game, and every time we played it, we had a great time. Great time. In fact, my little brother, I asked him again this year, I said, what out of all my vintage games is your favorite? And he goes, oh yeah, Pizza Party, dude. Pizza Party by far. He just loves the craziness with Pizza Party. It's easy to play, and honestly, anyone can win. I think 2 years ago, my little niece, who had no idea what she was doing, won the game, and she just turned around and clapped for herself. She's like, did I win? Yeah. Now, can I eat this? I'll tell you what, it's a good-looking game. It does cost a pretty penny, though. Would never pay the prices that people are trying to ask for it online. That's sad, because it's not worth that price, but it is a good game. My number 93 is one of the Mrs. games. It's always been a high-ranking game of hers, and it is the Flintstones. In the Flintstones, you are, Barney, Betty, Wilma, or Fred, and you're moving around the city trying to find 5 clams and Dino. If you can do all that and get to the center of the board, you win the game. This game is smart for a few reasons. One, there's a die that only has 1, 2, or 3, times 2 on the 6-sided die. When you roll it, you're supposed to guess what your roll is going to be. Kind of goes into the episode where Fred has a betting addiction. He's like, bet. He has that gambling addiction. And I don't know if that's why they did it, but that's kind of cool. Guess, calling your shot. You have a 1 in 3 shot to go again. Also, because the board's so spacious and it would take forever on a roll of 1, 2, or 3 to get around the board, they have these little Flintstone cards. You can move from one Flintstone card to any other Flintstone car on the board, and there's tons of them on the board. It makes for getting around the board a lot easier, so I'm thankful for that too. In a lot of our games, we have found Dino at the very end or second to last. I know this last game, my wife found it pretty quick, but she didn't have 5 clams, which sucks. She didn't win the game for that reason, because she was having to get clams, and you can steal Dino from a player, and that's what happened. But the game is kind of fun, and like I said, we played it again this year, and I enjoyed it again. So the game will just stay on my list at the top 100 right here. My number 92 is the game called Dragon Strike. In Dragon Strike, you are adventurers moving into a dragon's den. You're trying to get a red gem, then a blue gem, or vice versa. Once you have both gems, then you can sneak into the very uber secret passageway to get the dragon's golden eggs. And once the dragon's golden eggs are out of its lair, then anyone, regardless of whether they've got both jewels out, they all can go for those golden eggs. Now, how can they steal them from you? They can't. But when you roll certain dice numbers on the 6-sided dice, you will hit the electronic dragon in the middle. He has a little snake-like neck that just slithers around, just slings around the board, and sometimes he'll knock that jewel or egg straight off your head, and if so, if a player lands on it, they can pick it up and make a run for the entrance. This game is goofy fun. My wife's family is a big fan of this game. Every holiday season, this game comes out and gets played. Like I said, for me, a lot of times it goes too long in the tooth because it seems like everything is getting knocked off your head. But this last time we played, I didn't mind it so much. So it is a fun game. And you know, if you have kids, you'll be doing a lot of screaming and laughing as well when you're playing. Heck, with adults, we've been screaming and laughing, and we have a great time playing the game. And finally, my number 91 is Magic Kingdom, the board game. It's a Disney World board game. I think you could get it exclusively at Disney World, but you can get it secondhand off eBay a lot. You're basically just moving around the Magic Kingdom to different rides and different lands and then trying to exit out in time. Be the first to go visit all 5 rides and exit out. That's basically it. There are cards you can play that kind of help you out. There's a railroad, which no one has ever used because it's 50-50 on whether you'll get to move on the railroad or not, and that would suck. But the railroad can get you around the board a little bit faster. There are mainly all the cards in the game really help you out to move you a little bit quicker to different areas. But other than that, that's all it is, roll moves. It's a very pretty looking game. If you love Disney World, maybe, and you don't really like board games that much, maybe this game's for you. I mean, we like Disney World. I bought it for my wife a long time ago because I was trying to get her into board games, and we play it. We love it. We play a little mini game afterwards to play all of our cards and say who had the best trip. And that's another, it's like a consolation prize for someone who may not have won, but they had better rides to go on than the other person did. Well, my wife lucked out and just about had every card she needed for in her opinion, the perfect Disney trip. And so she was really happy with the spots she got to go in. I really wish that a company known for its imagination could have come up with a better board game, because like I said, it's just basically roll and move and visit these 5 spots and then get out. But you know, it has the Disney World feel. So you got to be a Disney fan to really love this game. It's not the best game, which is why it's low on my list. But me and my wife enjoy it, which is why it's on the list at all. Hey folks, that is my first 10 on the list. What are my top 90? Find out next time in another video.